Hi, Mark Robertson back with you, continuing the talks on my book, Carrying Lawn Chairs, Youth Sports and Other Parental Mindsets. And the first part of the book was talking about parents and youth sports directly and things related to that, and all of the problems I see in youth sports these days. And the second part, I talk about parents and young people and other topics related to society today, a lot of the things going on that aren't so great and why they happen. And like I say, I'm not an expert, but I just like to point out various things that seem obvious. Today's topic is pretty heavy: drugs. Why do kids take drugs? Why does anybody take an illegal drug to make them evidently feel better? What are they trying to escape? Why are they doing it? Yes, obviously some just take it to experiment. Oh, this is cool. I feel good. All this other stuff, which obviously it doesn't last. But what gets them to that point? A lot of them are in pain. A lot of the kids are in pain. Why are they in pain? They're confused. They want to be loved. They don't have much love at home from the parents. Everything's superficial. They go to school. I mean, they may not fit in at school. They're all these peer pressure, all these groups, cliques, and everything like that, and they just don't have an outlet. They go home. They don't have an outlet. The parents are on their case. They're not doing this in school. They're not doing that in school. Some kids are just different. They're not meant to be in a typical school these days. Public schools these days are, it's a nightmare in many instances, and they go and they really aren't individualized and taken care of. It's all just kind of a cattle sheep type thing, and they get lost, and well, they want friends, and so they think it's neat to turn to drugs, and before you know it, they get hooked, and it's just a downward spiral, and it's not good, and they go on and on and on throughout their existence. And once they get hooked, and some of these drugs are deadly. You hear about the opioid and fentanyl crisis. Every week, thousands die in this country from that. And how do they get to the point? How does a child come out of the womb, an innocent, beautiful child, and turn to a situation where they just have to have these drugs to get through the day? It's not a good situation. And I'm not an expert, believe me, but they put on a false self. They build that up over the years, and it just keeps going on and on and on. They need to do something to relieve the pain, and being the false self creates the pain. And many things that parents do for kids that they think are good creates this false self. Yes, you have to apply yourself, and you have to do things that are necessary to get along in life, and a lot of times that's in school. You got to do certain things to learn various things like reading and writing and arithmetic, although these days I guess they don't teach penmanship much anymore. But with all the technology. But, there are things you have to do, but there's still stressors on these young people that it's not a good situation. My book is about youth sports, and I'm not saying being involved in youth sports will cause someone to turn to drugs, but putting kids in youth sports at a very young age confuses them. It puts them in a lot of pressure. They go, why am I here? I don't want to be here. I guess I have to be here because this is where my parents want me to be. And if I want my parents to love me, well, I better go do this. So they start early being a false self. And they think, well, I got to do this. And all these people in the stands watching and cheering and yelling and all this. Why am I here? What is all this about? Well, this must be where I'm supposed to be. So I guess I better try to act like I'm supposed to be here and want to be here, even though that's not where they want to be at that young age. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like I said, I've said all the way through, I wouldn't put kids in youth sports before age 10 or maybe even 12. And it's just not a good. It's all these indirect messages kids get, and they when they want to be liked, they do whatever it takes to be liked. When they get back in school, and they do all these crazy things, and half of the mischief caused by kids are because they want to be liked, and they think, oh, if I do this or I do something crazy in a car or something like this, they'll like me. And that's the same way with the gang situation. All these broken families, and these kids grow up and they have no father, or they don't have, the mother is either tied up in work or not available to them in any way, and they turn to gangs to meet their familial needs, and often that involves drugs as well. And then it's nothing but trouble and a downward spiral. And so the breakdown of the family has a lot to do with the drug situation as well. They're growing up in a loving family that doesn't guarantee 100%, but it's sure a lot better situation. And our society, the family, has broken down in so many ways on the moral front, and the mom and the dad and the kids. I mean, there's so many other situations going on these days, and kids turn to drugs to get relief from all of this. When you get out of the area of God's plan, that brings stress, and a lot of these kids are under major stress, and they turn to drugs. But it's not the answer, of course. But there are things that bring it about. You put these kids in these schools, and age 2, 3, preschool, and all this, that puts a lot of pressure out. We got to get them into Harvard, so they got to start early, and that puts a lot of pressure and creates a false self. And then they go all the way through, and they're doing all these things, and it's a fine line. Yes, you've got to learn things, you've got to know things, there's a lot of things that you have to learn in this world to get along, but you still have to be your true self. And getting out of that is what causes a lot of stress. I mean, I wouldn't put kids into school before age 6. And, you hear Einstein didn't even read before he was 9. And so all of this early pushing of kids into sports, into school and stuff like that creates a lot of pressure, a lot of false self. And I'm not saying it leads to drugs, but it's a major factor of getting kids away from who they really are. And that is a major factor in drug use. But like I say, I don't have the answers. The drug epidemic in this country is out of control, and there are a lot of reasons for it. I'm just adding my 2 cents here, and hopefully that might contribute to the situation somewhat. But we thank you for being with us today. And once again, my book is Carrying Lawn Chairs. It's available on Amazon. And you all have a good day. We'll talk to you next time.